Ahoy, mateys! Where are all you students out there? Ahoy! Welcome to story time. Today we're reading Pirate Pete's Talk Like a Pirate. Written by Kim Kennedy, illustrated by Doug Kennedy, and brought to you by Scholastic, you scalawags. Let's just dive right into the story. Pirate Pete had the most amazing ship ever to sail the high seas, but he needed a crew. Not any old crew would do, however. I needs me a pirate crew, Pete told his parent, and I know just where to find one, on Rascal Island. To Rascal Island we go. Pete spun the wheel towards the Sea of Mischief, and soon the speedy ship had reached Rascal Island. Pete dropped the anchor in the bay, and then he hung a sign across the ship's bow that said, "Buccaneers wanted." Before long, a boat filled with rascals rowed up to the ship. Pete rubbed his hands in glee. They were the dirtiest, most mischievous, and sneakiest looking scalawags and scurvy dogs he'd ever laid eyes on. One by one, the rascals climbed aboard the ship. "Listen up, mateys," announced the parrot. "If ye wants to sail with Pete, then ye's got to prove ye got's what it takes." Pete nodded and declared, "Ye needs a peg leg and an old eye patch, a fierce-looking hook, and a beard you can scratch. You got to load the cannon and know how to fire it, but most of all, ye gots to talk like a pirate. Arrgh!" A rascal stepped forward, loaded the cannon, and fired it. Boom! "Nice firing," said Pete. "And I sees you's got the peg leg, the hook, and the eye patch. And that beard of yours, does it hanker for a scratch?" "It's quite itchy," answered the man, "especially during the summer when the weather tends to be sultry." "Blow me down," bellowed Pete. "You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank." The man splashed overboard. Pete hollered, "You should have said, when the sun's a-blazing, me beard gets the itches worse than a bucket of sand down me britches." "Next," ordered the parrot. Pete squinted at the rest of the rascals and said, "Ye gots to be stubborn and mighty cranky. Ye's gots to be dirty and awful stanky. You've gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it. But most of all, ye gots to talk like a pirate." A rascal stepped forward and loaded the cannon and fired it. "Nice firing," said Pete, "and I see you're pretty dirty and stanky, but is ye stubborn and cranky?" "Oh, indeed," replied the rascal. "Sometimes I'm very irritable, especially when I don't eat my breakfast." "Shiver me timbers," shouted Pete. "You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank."
As the rascal went overboard, Pete cried, "You should have said, I's as mean as a shark that's stuck in a tub when I've not scarfed me morning grub." "Next," squawked the bird. Pete glared at the rascals and said, "Ye gots to love treasure. Why, it's your duty to plunder ship and shore for gleamin' booty. You gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it. But most of all, ye gots to talk like a pirate." As Rascal stepped forward, loaded the cannon, and fired it. "Nice firing," said Pete. "And judging by the gold and rubies you're flaunting, I reckon you've done some plundering in your day." "That is correct," said the rascal. "I've misappropriated a number of fine jewels without permission." "Blimey," cried Pete. "You don't talk like a pirate. Walk the plank." As the rascal leaped overboard, Pete shouted, "You should have said, I've pilfered loot on land and sea, and no man's say-so has ever stopped me." "Next," blared the parrot. Pete shook his head. He had finally lost his patience. He curled up his lip at the last rascal and declared, "Ye gots to trim the sails and mind the deck. Ye gots to be brave in case of shipwreck. Ye gots to load a cannon and know how to fire it. But most of all, ye gots to talk like a pirate." The rascal walked forward, loaded the cannon, and fired it. "Nice firin'," said Pete. "But is ya brave? 'Cause no lily-livered seafarer is gonna sail with me." "I can assure you that I am extremely courageous," said the rascal. "I will conduct myself with valor at all times." "Confound it!" shouted Pete, stomping his foot. "You don't talk like a pirate, walk the plank." As the rascal dropped overboard, Pete yelled, "You should have said, I'm not a yellow-bellied bone from me head to me toes. I'll stand brave upon this ship wherever she goes." "Can you believe it, Mort?" Pete moaned to his parrot. "Out of all them rascals, not a one was fit for me crew." "'Tis true," squawked the bird, "by the powers. They's no more than a bunch of squiffies and sprogs. None of 'em fit to go a swashbuckling and plundering for pieces of 8 upon the briny blue on this here vessel." Pete blinked. "Why, ye talk just like a pirate!" he cheered to the bird. "You're all the crew I needs. Weigh anchor!" "Aye, aye," said the parrot, and off they sailed. Back to the high seas went Pete and his bird. A pirate always gets the last word. They looked for a crew so they could hire it, but blimey, none could talk like a pirate. Arr! Arr!